The sky above Sector 7 burned orange and black, streaked with plasma fire that screamed through the atmosphere like vengeful spirits. Talia pressed herself deeper into the rubble, her combat armor scraped and dented, its power cells depleted hours ago. The weight on her chest wasn't the armor, it was the small, trembling body of Brock, the Carvathi cub who refused to let go of her vest. "Shh, little one," Talia whispered, though she knew the translator chip in his ear was likely damaged. "We're going to be okay." She didn't believe her own words. The Krath Empire's bombardment had intensified in the last hour, turning the refugee camp into a crater-pocked hellscape. Talia had been part of the human peacekeeping force stationed here, meant to evacuate civilians before the front lines collapsed. But plans meant nothing when the enemy decided to shell indiscriminately. Brack whimpered, his 6 eyes blinking in rapid succession, a sign of terror in Carvathi young. His small claws dug into her armor, desperate and trusting in equal measure. The cub couldn't have been more than 3 cycles old, barely past infancy. His fur, normally a proud silver blue of his warrior species, was matted with dust and dried blood. Talia's tactical display flickered uselessly. No comms, no backup. Her squad had been separated during the initial bombardment, and for all she knew, she was the last human standing in this sector. The irony wasn't lost on her humanity, the species that had only joined the galactic community 2 decades ago, now dying alone on an alien world to protect the children of a species renowned across 17 systems as apex predators. The Carvathi were legends. Adults stood 3 meters tall, possessed strength that could bend durasteel, and had natural weapons that made them formidable without any technology. They were the kind of species that other civilizations feared, respected, and carefully negotiated with. But Brock was just a child, and children didn't deserve to die in wars they didn't start. Another explosion rocked the ground, closer this time. Talia felt the shockwave ripple through her bones, saw the ancient structure above them groan and shift. Dust rained down like toxic snow. She curled tighter around Brock, using her body as a shield, feeling his rapid heartbeat against her chest, 3 hearts pumping in frantic synchronization. "Talia?" A voice crackled, static-filled but unmistakable. She fumbled for her helmet comms, hope surging. "This is Sergeant Talia Chen, Human Auxiliary Corps, Sector 7. I'm pinned down in the old temple ruins. Grid reference Delta 47. I have a civilian Carvathi juvenile. Requesting immediate evac." The response was broken, fragmented. "Can't reach you. Bombardment. Sector collapse in 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Talia's stomach dropped. The Krath were preparing a final saturation strike. Nothing would survive. She looked down at Brock. His 6 eyes met hers, and despite the language barrier, despite the biological gulf between their species, she saw understanding there. He knew. Somehow, this child understood that death was circling them. "No," Talia said firmly, to herself as much as to him. "Not happening." She assessed her options with military precision. The temple's underground passages, she'd mapped them during the initial survey. They were old, pre-spaceflight Carvathi construction, built to withstand natural disasters. If she could get Brock deep enough, seal the entrance, the cub might survive the bombardment, but she'd never make it back out in time. The realization settled over her like cold water. This was it, her last mission. The equation was simple. 1 human life for 1 Carvathi cub. Any other species in the galaxy might have hesitated, might have calculated the political implications, might have weighed the value of an apex predator's offspring against a single human soldier. Talia didn't hesitate. "Come on, buddy," she said, pulling Brack closer. "We're moving." She forced her exhausted body upright, ignoring the protest of bruised ribs and the sharp pain in her left leg. Brack clung to her as she stumbled through the rubble, moving deeper into the temple complex. The architecture was alien angles that seemed wrong to human eyes. Spaces designed for beings twice her size, but she'd studied the layout. The passage sloped downward, carved from solid rock. Talia counted her steps. orienting by memory. Behind them, the bombardment intensified. The temple shook. Chunks of ceiling crashed down, but she pressed forward, one hand protecting Brack's head, the other feeling along the wall. There. The sanctuary chamber. Carvathi temples always had them reinforced spaces where the most precious artifacts were stored, and where cubs could be sheltered during planetary disasters. She practically fell through the entrance, exhaustion finally catching up with her. The chamber was small, circular, its walls carved with intricate glyphs that seemed to shimmer in her helmet's dying light. At the center was a depression, a nest space. Talia placed Brock in it gently. The cub looked up at her, making a chittering sound that her malfunctioning translator rendered as static. But she understood the meaning. "Don't leave." "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. She pulled the emergency beacon from her belt, her last piece of functioning equipment, and attached it to Brack's harness. "This will bring help. Your people will find you." The cub's claws reached for her, but Talia was already backing away. The sanctuary had an ancient sealing mechanism, a massive stone door designed to protect against anything. Once triggered, it couldn't be opened from inside. Only from outside, or by rescue teams with proper equipment. Talia's hands found the activation glyphs. She pressed them in sequence, muscle memory from her briefing. The door groaned, beginning its slow descent. Brack's cry cut through the static, pure, terrified, heartbroken. Talia wanted to run back, to hold him one more time, but she forced herself to stay in position. The door had to seal completely. "Be brave," she called out as the gap narrowed. "You're Carvathi. You're stronger than you know." The door sealed with a finality that echoed through the chamber. Talia slumped against it, feeling the vibrations of Brock's small fists pounding from the other side. Tears streaked down her face, mixing with blood and dust. Her tactical display flickered one last time, showing the timer. Talia Chen sat with her back against the door, one hand pressed to its surface, imagining she could feel the cub on the other side. She thought of her family on Earth, of the beach house where she'd grown up, of her sister's laugh and her mother's cooking. She thought of the human phrase that had become famous across the galaxy, the one that other species quoted with confusion and grudging respect. Humanity. Fuck yeah. They never understood it. They thought it was about human strength, human technology, human conquest. But it wasn't. It had never been. It was about this. About choosing to be the shield. About standing in the gap. About protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, even when it cost everything. The bombardment reached its crescendo. The temple groaned, began to collapse, and Talia Chen smiled, her hand still pressed to the door, knowing that behind it, a small Carvathi cub would survive to see another sunrise. That was enough. 3 days later, Carvathi rescue teams pulled Brack from the sanctuary. The cub was dehydrated, traumatized, but alive. They found the human's body just outside the sealed door, her hand still raised toward the stone, as if reaching for the child within. The Carvathi elder who led the recovery team knelt beside Talia's remains, his massive form trembling with something humans would have recognized as grief. He touched his claws to his chest in the highest salute of his people, a gesture reserved for the greatest warriors. "She was just one human," a younger Carvathi said, confused. "Why would she?" "Because," the elder interrupted, his voice thick with emotion. "That is what humans do. They are not the strongest, they are not the fastest, but they are the ones who stay. They are the ones who shield." Brack, wrapped in emergency blankets, clutched the beacon Talia had given him. He would carry it for the rest of his life, a reminder of the human who gave everything to save him. And across the galaxy, when other species asked the Carvathi why they allied so fiercely with humanity, they told Brock's story. They told the story of Talia Chen, the human who remained alone in the Warzone, shielding a predator cub with her own body, the human who taught an entire species what it truly meant to be strong.